hear me okay? Good? Is it too loud, Camilla? I saw a little sass on your face. It's good?
It's good.
Doesn't Jen look great tonight, everybody? Jared, you look okay. Joke number one. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jared's younger brother. My name's Heath. We also have an older brother, Nick, who is right over there. He's a guy that kind of looks like me, just got a little bit less hair on his head. You might know it. So I'm his brother. And obviously I've known Jared his whole life. And, what do we know about Jared? Maybe not a ton, right? I mean, the guy didn't even have a Facebook page. My dog has a Facebook page. I know that's funny. That's not a joke. Both those things are true. He doesn't. My dog does. He's a pretty tough guy to get information out of. It's really tough. I've noticed something over the last few years when I talk about Jared or I talk about Nick. I talk about him sometimes to people that have never met him. They may not know him very well at all. But I've noticed something with Jared. When I tell a story about him, I always add something at the end of it. For whatever reason, when I'm telling the story, somebody doesn't know him, never met him before, I'll say something at the end like, yeah, but if you ever met Jared, you never really get that from him. Or yeah, if you knew him, you still wouldn't guess that. So it got me thinking, like, why is that? And I think the short answer is that Jared's a pretty conservative guy. He's quiet, doesn't talk a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. It's certainly fine. But it got me, kind of thinking that basically everybody can kind of know a different Jared. And that the Jared I know may not be the Jared that you know. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to say about him, I was keeping that in mind. So I'm going to describe Jared, and I'm going to go on for a long time, get over it. But I just want to describe him how I know him. Because I think I know him better than most people. And the first thing I would say about Jared is, Jared's a really humble guy. He's very humble. He always has been. And I mean, it's surprising you're probably thinking, like, yeah, that sounds about right. Jared's conservative. Well, that makes sense. Not so fast. Because Jared's not really humble in a traditional sense. He's really not. As a matter of fact, Jared brags about himself all the time. Constantly. I mean, look, if you're around Jared enough, you're going to hear that he's got the best shot in basketball. You're going to hear that he's got the best shot with his handgun. You're going to hear that Jared's the best at craftsmanship. You're going to hear that Jared's the most fearless skydiver. And you're going to hear that stuff all the time. And it's always been that way. And growing up as Jared's younger brother, that stuff really rubbed off on me, that in-your-face, boastful, arrogant attitude, that really rubbed off on me a lot growing up. And I've always thought that Jared never got enough blame for that. Ever. Like, I don't know how that reputation kind of escaped him, but it did. No one really thinks about him that way. They just think about me that way. It's unfair. And, so you might be asking yourself, well, why would you say Jared's humble then? Because I would. I would say all that stuff, and I would also say that he's humble. So yeah, there's a catch with that. Because, when Jared says that he's the best shot with his handgun, okay, that's the middle. He says the best shot at basketball, that's a downright lie. But when he's saying all that stuff, like at the end of the day, Jared ultimately knows that none of that stuff matters. And, on the flip side, if you do want to know the stuff about the stuff that matters with Jared, I mean, good luck getting out of him. That's not going to happen. I mean, if you want to hear about success that Jared's had in his career, if you want to hear about success that he's had in his personal life, if you want to hear about success, or if you want to hear about the times that Jared has helped people in his life that need his help, because I guarantee you those people exist, I'm one of them. But if you want to hear about that, good luck. You won't. And that's what makes Jared a really great person. Because the stuff that really makes it great, he refuses to take credit for it. He always has. Okay, so Jared's humble. I got a couple more. The other thing I'd say about Jared is he's really competitive. And I think that's overlooked because of his personality, but Jared is a really competitive guy. And it's easy when you hear the word competitive, maybe to think about just sports related, and that's true. He's very, very competitive at sports. But Jared's competitive at everything. And he's the kind of guy that likes to start these new hobbies, and he wants to be good at them immediately. He wants to work at them. Like, for example, Jared plays guitar, but he didn't used to. He just all of a sudden said he wanted to buy a guitar, and he became good at it right off the bat. And then, he wanted to be better with his hands because he never knew how to do craftsmanship type stuff. So that's what he's doing now. He's great at it. So he's very competitive. I think that's overlooked. He's, I could really pinpoint the exact time when I knew Jared was competitive, and I knew how competitive that he was. And I'm going to share the story. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, it's a terrible story, and it's one of those stories where you just had to be there to really understand it, but it was impactful to me, so I'm going to tell it anyway. You know, I remember when Jared was a sophomore in high school, and for those of you that don't know, Jared's got a really bad back, and he always has, and that prevented him from doing a lot of stuff that he wanted to do, you know, namely sports. But I remember when Jared was a sophomore in high school, they had a basketball game, and they were playing Tecumseh that night, and you know, our older brother Nick was playing that game, and Jared probably had a couple other classmates playing in that game. You know, the third guy in the wedding party, Matt Smith, was not playing in that game. He has absolutely no back problems whatsoever. He just sucked at basketball. I'm going to take a quick break. The reason Smitty was complaining. He asked me if he was in the speech before, like yesterday. He said, "Am I in the speech?" I said, "No." And he was complaining about it. You're in it now, bud. Congratulations. You know, but I remember that basketball game, and to make a long story kind of shorter, to try to make it as short as I can, it was a really close game. It came down to the wire. Rebay won. Everybody was excited. It was a great game. Jared didn't get to play it. And I remember, for whatever reason that night, I got a ride home with Jared. I didn't usually do that, but I did. And, you know, I remember waiting in the parking lot outside Jared's 93 or 94 Chevy Beretta.
Yes.
92, okay. It's 92 Chevy Beretta, really sweet ride. But I was waiting outside that Beretta, and Jared kind of motioned at me to get in the car. So I got in the car and I sat down, and Jared got in and he slammed the door shut, and he turned on the car, and he flipped his radio system all the way up. And Jared had this just annoyingly loud radio system, like you could hear, you know, maybe at your house, or you can hear from 2 blocks away. He had the 2 big subwoofers in the back, just absolutely annoyingly loud, obnoxious. And I remember that night, you know, we got home from Ralph Fulcher Gymnasium faster than anybody ever had before, because Jared was so pissed off, and he was just hammering that gas pedal down Washington Avenue. He was hammering it down, you know, Weed Lane. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that night. You know, I'll never forget. I was sitting in the passenger seat of that car, and I was absolutely terrified to look over at Jared. I was scared to death. And you could sense how upset he was, and I thought he'd dump me if I looked at him. So I didn't. I never looked at him. Probably crying. I don't know. I wasn't going to look. But, you know, we got home, and Jared got in the driveway, and he went inside. We didn't see him the rest of the night. He went to his room. And that's the end of that story, basically. Like, that's it. And I realized that's kind of a weird story to tell, but you weren't there. And, you know, if you were there, there was so much emotion in that car. So much. They just had to be there to really understand it and understand what it was. And it was all that, you know, anger and frustration and sadness all wrapped into one in that car. You could just feel it. And I'm not a kind of person that talks about like the energy in a room. I don't like to talk about any of that stuff, but I'm telling you, if you were in that car, there was an energy that you could feel in it because of all those heightened emotions. I mean, he had that sound system blaring so loud, and I swear to God, it might as well have been silent because it would have felt the exact same way. It just cut right through it. And the only way that those emotions could be elevated to that height is you had just like a crazy competitive drive. And he does. You know, I know that's kind of a weird story to tell, and I know it doesn't make a lot of sense. The best way for me to put that in perspective is to tell you that happened almost 20 years ago. Almost 20 years. It was 5 minutes, and not a single word was said. I can still remember that like it was yesterday. And if I was ever going to describe Jared, and I wanted to do it accurately, I would have to mention how competitive he was. And that story is a big part of that. Okay, so we got through 2. Jared's humble, he's competitive. Last one, and by my estimation, this is probably the biggest one that you need to know about Jared. With Jared, absolutely everything that he does is all or nothing. And I mean everything. Jared either loves something or he hates it. And there is absolutely no in between there. That's how Jared lives his life. And it doesn't matter what you're talking about. It doesn't matter if you're talking about sports. It doesn't matter if you're talking about politics. It doesn't matter if you're talking about TV shows or Little Caesars Pizza. None of that matters. Jared's got an opinion on it, and he will not be moved off of that opinion ever, no matter what. Regardless of the facts put in front of him, Jared is going to stick to his opinion. I mean, I can't tell you how many different arguments I've been with Jared, over the years about most of that stuff. Most of that stuff doesn't make any difference. You want to know something that I've never, ever, not once heard from Jared, not one single time in my entire life? Hey, Heath, that's a good point. Well, I never thought of it that way. I was wrong. Good luck with that the rest of your life, Jared. Seriously, Jared is easily the most stubborn person that I've ever met in my entire life. Not even close. Jared's the middle child, and it's almost like he was born in the middle, and he just said from that day forward, like, screw it, I'm never going to be caught dead in the middle ever again on anything. And to his credit, he hasn't. So congratulations. And you know what, I know I'm kind of talking about that like it's a negative thing and it's a bad thing, but it's definitely not. Not always. It's certainly not for me. I guarantee you one thing. I have never, not once, not one single time in my entire life, thought that Jared didn't love me, thought that he didn't care about me, or thought that he wouldn't do anything for me. I've always known that Jared is on my side, and he's got my back. And that's not any different than any other stuff with Jared. That's for life. It's not going to change. It's not going to be moved off that. It's a pretty comforting feeling. So Jen, you're married to him now. Congratulations, by the way. We're all happy to have you in the family. I can't promise you that you're always going to get along with Jared. I can promise you that you won't. But I can guarantee you one thing. You'll never find anybody, anywhere, that'll have your back the way that he does. He'll stand by your side the way that he does. No matter what. And ultimately, that's what marriage is all about. Having somebody like that. I'm proud to call Jared my brother. I'm proud to call him my friend. And Jen, I know you'd be proud to call him your husband. So if you got a drink, you can lift it up now. Sorry that took 20 minutes, but that's just the way it is. To Jared and Jen.
Cheers.